So quick rundown of the premise of this video. Quick apologies. I will be accidentally whistling from time to time because I just had major mouth surgery. I'm still getting used to it. Talking is still a bit difficult, but bear with me. If you're curious about that, you just watch the video that came out the day before this one and you'll know. Anyways, the idea is this. A little bit of background. I definitely grew up in that generation of millennials where the indie music scene was very big and quite pretentious. You know, me growing up listening to bands like Pavement, early Modest Mouse stuff, being very reluctant to accept any new indie bands that were coming out that were getting any sort of recognition, like Arcade Fire or later on like MGMT. Basically, me and my group of friends kind of rejected it because it was like a little too mainstream. We cared a lot about like where music got their influence. Like, you know, was it Minor Threat? Like, why do they sound like this? Is it Dinosaur Jr.? Sort of in a similar way that like craft beer people can be really annoying about what they're annoying about. We were about what we were about. As important as music is to a lot of people, a lot of the shaved down little details don't actually hold that much relevance except for those who covet them. So being that I was a bit of a musical snob and then sort of moved on from that genre of music, getting into things like Townes Van Zandt, getting a little all over the place too. Some random punk bands like The Cigarettes, or diving further back into the past with like Guy Clark. Music has absolutely been a big part of what motivates me, what goes about the soundtrack in my head, and probably has had an impact on decisions that I've made. But as you get older, you realize how silly it is, how undifferent they really are from a lot of the mainstream bands. Whereas like when you think of someone, like I remember like reading interviews, let's say with like a band that's sort of mainstream, but let's say a band like The Killers or Weezer, where you're kind of like, these guys are like corny and they're like clearly like they love being loved, they love the attention, and you kind of like see through a lot of like their persona of guys are kind of lame. Whereas then you read an interview with like, let's say Isaac Brock of Modest Mouse, and you're like, man, like this guy really doesn't care. And as you get older and maybe you go back and reread some of those interviews like I have, it just becomes more apparent that it's like, oh no, these guys care a lot about seeming like they don't care. This is just a different form of marketing of themselves, and having the sort of like dark, like, oh, whatever attitude is just as much of an act as every other band trying to be like core or loud or angry, whatever it might be. And though there are exceptions, for most bands, I would say, or most people, I would say, a lot of it is sort of contrived and put together intentionally, whether it be for marketing purposes or just influence from other bands that share the similar personality traits that they now have. I'm not saying that the members of Pavement or Dinosaur Jr. weren't actually like didn't really give a shit and they were just doing it because they love it. I'm only saying that there's a possibility that that's the case, and in some interviews with certain bands that I'm not going to go into detail, I'm like, oh no, you're a pretentious asshole. And so the point of this is I'm going to review something that is the opposite side of that coin. Something that is so in your face trying to market to you. Something that is so in your face, almost blatantly inauthentic in the way that they carry themselves, in the sense that they will directly compare themselves to like other great bands. The lyrics are, there's no mystery behind the lyrics. There's no poetic E.E. Cumming-esque, I'm talking about this, but I mean this kind of deal. Like, it is straightforward lyrically, I'm sad, and this is why I'm sad, and here's a thing you can relate to, blah, 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 email. It is literally everything that I would despise growing up. And if I'm going to be honest, as I listen to it, watch the little Instagram posts and stuff like that, it does irk me a bit in a like, oh, like I cannot believe that you're doing this. But this person or this band, I don't know if there's more to it besides this one guy, has like 104,000 followers on Instagram. I'm sure they're huge on TikTok. And to use the music that I will be playing in this, I am paying money to YouTube to use their music. I'm probably not going to be able to make any money off this because I'm splitting the monetization with the band, because that's their new program. But basically, that's the case. And I kind of wanted to just get a discussion going in the comments. And I wanted to be particularly respectful. Like if you're having a discussion in the comments, which this video is probably not going to do that well, but maybe there will be some discussion in the comments of what's cringe and what's too far and what's not. The second someone starts insulting you, like the second they call you a name or call out your intelligence, just stop responding to them. Even if they're trying to make a valid point, if they are resorting to something as silly as insulting you, just say, good game, dude, you win, and then just move on, because it's not worth your energy. Way too often we have this sort of Republican Democrat-esque debate between two people where if you don't agree with this person, you are wrong about everything, and then the vice versa. I don't want to see that in the comments. Just try to be respectful and ignore anyone who's just being a troll, which inevitably ends up in every comment section if this comment section gets anyone. I know that's a long intro, but that is the theme of the type of videos that I'm going to start doing, not necessarily with music, but with things in general, where I will play the devil's advocate against my own jerk opinion, as in like my gut reaction to something that I don't like, and try to find out what's what based on my own opinions while acknowledging the fact that I could totally be wrong about everything. This is just my reaction. And the idea is I'm going to try not to talk crap on anything about this. I'm going to try to be like objectively, intentionally, almost toxically positive to a thing that I feel extremely negative to while discussing it. I know that sounds complicated. I know this is a long intro. You'll see what I mean. Let's just get into it. There will be some songs in this that I'm actually not going to play because I only bought the rights to a couple songs. This one in particular that's like, I guess it's his best selling song. I'm assuming it is because the price, it was like 25 or 26 bucks just to use the song in the YouTube video. This video ain't going to make that much money. And I am willing to take that hit for certain videos just because it's fun to do this. But for that one and the song, I'll just show you like what he's saying. Here we go. I'm just gonna unmute this. First song, you're gonna see a lot of the same song. The song's called 2 Pills. Evidently, it's about his girlfriend getting an abortion or something along those lines. So back out, and then we're gonna go click it back in, and then we'll just, oh, this is, I mean, you can't deny that he is hitting all the targets for like the younger emo generation. Emo's having this like weird resurgence. I think they're still claiming emo. I'm not sure, but it's different. Emos used to have this like outcast thing where it was like somewhat legitimately like the outcasts. It ran alongside a lot of like the anime kids, Bandcamp kids that sort of fell into that. Whereas now emo is this weird mainstream where like, I feel like you could still be really popular in school and be like emo. But I mean, and you know, I'm not 14 and in high school, so I could be completely wrong. But that's just like me looking at people, and that's what I'm kind of gathering from it. But your favorite vampire, new song, who's ready? Yeah, I guess he has a vampire video type thing going. Go to this song. This is the 2 Pill song. Here we go. Was it my fault? It took just one call. 2 pills to swallow the whole for tomorrow. The weight of it all, I'm feeling so small. Was it my okay, so he's saying after almost having a kid and losing everything, I wrote this. So I don't know if it's like I don't think there's any political motivation behind this, whether it's like, oh, like I almost had a kid and pro-abortion or anti-abortion. I have no clue. Kind of weird. Like the lyrics are like very straightforward. Like I said, like there's not really any metaphorical use of the 2 pills or anything like that. You're gonna see this exact song be brought up in a bunch of different ways. Okay, here it is. Same song, different Instagram post. Okay, that girl in the background is having the time of her life, and she is the highlight of everything that I've ever seen on this. I've scrolled through this a couple of times, but not as recent as 3 days, so this is my first time seeing this. Yeah, I like that. I think that's sick. I don't know if this is his friend or maybe he hired a dancer or something. I don't know. But who felt this? Like the blatant, like, who felt this? Like, this is for you. Like, this is your anthem. Like, it's so direct. It kind of reminds me when, like, Good Charlotte was sort of their self-appointed, like, we are the emo band you can relate to. And, like, it just was so obviously marketed. But even though they were a little bit more vague than this is being straightforward, but I remember like hating Good Charlotte with a passion. I don't remember how old I was when Good Charlotte was a thing, but I know it was a couple years after Blink-182 had their reign, and I did like Blink-182. I had Enema, The State. But it's like, I look at that and I'm like, okay, so he's being super direct to the audience. Is that such a terrible thing? Is it such a bad thing that he's not trying to hide it? Like there's this idea of like, oh, art has to be artsy and abstract, but maybe like going straight forward. Clearly this has a huge audience. I mean, let's go through some of the comments. Can't wait for this to drop. People commenting on the dancer a good bit. I love your music. You saved me from myself. Thank you for 3 years of music. Like comments like this, like you could, they're called thanks for feet pics, which is pretty great. But like you have to wonder, like, is that authentic? If that's authentic, that's like a huge deal. Like if this song literally like helped one person get through like a really hard time, it doesn't matter how artsy or well thought out in the traditional sense of being creative it is. What matters is the effect of someone. And I make this analogy a lot on my other channel in the skateboarding world, referring to certain skateboard YouTubers. But it's like, if Blue's Clues is too obvious for you and it annoys you to watch, then it is clearly not marketed towards you, because there's a billion people out there who truly love Blue's Clues. The difference is there's an age gap that is clearly for Blue's Clues. But I'm saying that same sort of logic, if it's not for you, that doesn't mean that it's trash. It's just not for you. Maybe a better example would be something a little bit for everyone's age. Like the show Velma, which is objectively the worst modern cartoon most people have seen by how hard it's trying to be this meta comedy or whatever. But some people really do like that. Some people are enjoying it. And I can't say that it's truly trash. It doesn't do anything for me and I get no joy out of it, but I cannot tell you that it is the worst thing. I can, but I'm sort of getting this like idea of like, stop projecting my own opinions and my reaction to things on the truth of what something is. And also it's like, you gotta let people come to their own conclusions and opinions. There's a lot of unspoken pressure when it comes to being like an influencer, especially like in the world that I do better in, the skateboarding world, where like I try really hard not to talk bad about something that is not directly in front of me. Like if it's one of my friends friends and we're just hazing each other, that's one thing, because it's obviously in jest. But if I like take shots at someone outside of it, even if it's being super satirical, it might not catch someone as satire, and that could actually influence someone an opinion on that person. They go leave a comment on their page, and then that comment, someone else reads that, and then that could influence them. I mean, it could be a bit of a ripple effect. One comment's probably not going to do that, but I think you see where I'm going with that. But I think it's our responsibility, not just as like some people who have like a following, but people in general, to kind of check what they're saying and acknowledge that things are so subjective. And the music world is definitely something I've been very guilty of, that, you know, having so many friends get into so many less cool types of music, especially like family members and stuff. Like my sister's always like the pop music, and my brother was like unapologetically in love with bands like Limp Bizkit and just that whole rap rock genre, which in satire is really fun to listen to Limp Bizkit, but like he really, really liked it. And back then I remember feeling so cringe about him, like really think that there was some meaning to it. Here's another version of the same song. Acoustic. Yeah, it's like the way he's singing it too, like the way he's like moving his body is such like a obvious copying. I mean, when I think of bands like Yellow Card or these kind of like later pop punk bands that came out, I mean, I guess you could even argue that they clearly stole it from like the earlier pop punk bands, but I see the repetitiveness of it, and it just gets under my skin a bit. And I feel like it's something that I just need to get over, because it's like, this dude is 30, I'm sure of it. I thought this was a joke. See what the replies are. Is this not satire? Is this not no, this dude's dead serious, and he has like a legit fan base. So, and I could see how someone would think this is satire, because he's not trying to hide any of it. It almost seems like the idea that you would have the opinion of him that he's clearly just oblivious, and he's just blindly checking all the boxes that he thinks will do well. But like clearly, if that is the case, it's working. Or also maybe he's like really clever at marketing himself, and he's just like, okay, well, you can go this obvious. So who really knows what this could be? He could be a literal musical genius. I have no idea. This could be like the smartest, most sophisticated play at being so obvious it's indie I've ever seen. But I obviously I don't think that. But yeah, as I look at these comments, like a song that makes me sure I never want to bring a kid into the world. I guess it's kind of a pun on the lyrics of the song, as well as he just doesn't like this guy. Maybe that's true. Please don't drop this, please. You know what? The fact that he's not editing these hate comments, and maybe he does, just didn't get to any of these. Maybe he's not. I think that's kind of cool. Like, whenever I get hate comments, I don't touch them. People's, like, legitimate opinions. That's what a comment section is for, comments. Okay, so here's one that I don't know if I can actually play the volume for. I didn't see an option for it, but he's covering, what's her name? Miley Cyrus's song Flowers, and he's like, I recorded my ex favorite song in her shirt, and so it's just him singing the song in a very, as you can imagine, emo-esque, exaggeratedly body movements, somewhat Spider-Man-esque way. Particularly not a big fan of this song. And so whenever he does a new song, he does a couple different music videos for it to promote it, and it's always the hook. It's not like he's really using different sections of the song. It's just, yeah, just usually the hook. Okay, so this is, yeah, that hit song that I can't use. But if AC/DC, you can read the lyrics here. Boyfriends try to fight me. Girlfriends never see it coming. I don't know what that means. And my dad never listens, and he thinks I'm a poor decision. Like, these are like such obvious like tropes of like, you know, like the American teenager of like, my dad doesn't get me. And like, these are things that I think every teenager feels to some degree, maybe not necessarily all of us to the Christian part, but basically he like, when he says these things, he's like, this is your anthem. And then he just states these very like kind of bland, relatable things, sort of like a horoscope, if you will, which might actually be great for people. I mean, the more you think about it, like a ton of people can relate to it. And I don't necessarily predict that this guy is about to take off. I don't predict that this guy's about to have the most successful music career ever. I think there is a lower roof on what he's doing. But the biggest part is like, in actuality, he's not hurting anyone. And the message in his song could be like good energy to someone to have, be like, oh yeah, someone else is like going through what I'm going through, but also wrote songs about it. So like, maybe I can listen to these songs when I'm dealing with them. You gotta think, there's an entire generation of man butt rock that got mid-30 Gen X guys through some tough times too. You know, I'm sure Creed really held it down for some people. And I don't mean that in a satirical way. I mean, people legitimately were going through a really hard time, put on Arms Wide Open, and then all of a sudden just like came back to earth and settled down. That's like a real possibility. But I have to click off of this particular, I just don't like the way he moves. And he's like pretty big on the anti going to church on Sunday. This one right here does actually bother me a little bit. It's, if you ever noticed, wait, let me start it over so I can read it correctly. Oh, I cannot skip forward. That is annoying. Has anyone ever noticed that every super religious church-going family always has that one mentally unstable member with the emo face that never end it? As someone who knows a lot of extremely religious families coming from Maryland and Pennsylvania, they did not all have the emo kid that was mentally unstable. But to me, it's like a little grabby for that mentally unstable clique. I feel like there is a bit of like mental illness clout chasing that's going on out there, and I'm not necessarily accusing him of that right here. Though a part of me kind of wants to accuse him of that. But I'm not a big fan of that, and I think I might do a video on particularly that, where people are talking about mental illness like it's a really cool personality trait. And I get making light of a subject that is very tough to swallow because it helps people deal with things. But what I don't like is people doing that in the meme format to build themselves up or build themselves up on a platform. The actual intention behind it isn't actually about education or helping or bringing light to it. It's all about bringing likes to you. I'm just kind of like, blah, that's, I don't like it. But whatever, we're moving on. I do this comment, bro, you know what sounds better? Opening a Bible. Jesus Christ. I mean, a lot of these are that exact same song. Like I said, it's his hit, so he's pushing that song pretty hard. So I don't know, what do you think? I mean, clearly I'm being very easy on this guy. I'm trying to see like the good in what he does, and I do think that there is something really nice about simplicity and having more people be able to relate to it, even if it's so obviously put together for that reason. That doesn't necessarily make it bad, it just makes it less complicated, which most music, we like a little bit of complication to it, because simply put, life is extremely complicated and not simple at all. And even if you relate to any of these songs, the reasons in which you relate and the way that you relate is extremely complicated. There is no basic emotion, madness, sadness, or happiness that isn't an extremely complicated concoction of all three of them to some degree. Go with this guy. If you like that one song that I played that I got the rights to, because I just realized I didn't play any of the other songs, go download it. It's on his iTunes, and I think he has a Spotify. This dude's clearly getting enough hate as it is. Just leave the poor guy alone. There's nothing that you're going to say to him that a bunch of other people who don't like him aren't already saying to him. Anyways, that's the end of the video. It's pretty long, sorry. I'll also be chiming in the comments if things get interesting, so that'd be cool to interact with people who watch my video. Till next time.